let me introduce Ahmed Baba, who's the co-founder, president, and editor-in-chief of Rant Media, also a columnist for the British newspaper, The Independent. Brother, thanks so much for joining us. The first thing I want to ask you is, do we accept Stacey Dash back into the black delegation? What do you think?
No way. The black delegation is not having that. What the black delegation should do is commission the trade. Now, I think we could trade Stacey. Who do y'all think? I'm thinking maybe, we got Eminem. I mean, some easy low-hanging fruits we can trade.
Yeah, Eminem is too easy.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's crazy because this new generation, look, every time this new generation,
It's 'cause you're getting old, Rebecca.
Right, has given us stuff like Bad Baby, the girl that did what is that? The Meet Me Outside. How about that?
Catch Me Outside,
that one.
yeah.
And they've given us even this new girl from that Uber video that we saw may become somebody as well. They're giving us like Kim Kardashian. These people we don't want them. Not to say that they're like Kim Kardashian is a fly woman, but she can't come to the cookout just because she's married to a black man.
True.
So I don't know who it would be.
Trade?
That's a good question. We got to really, really think about that.
I'm gonna be honest with you. I know it's not the kind of trade we normally would trade for someone from the Caucasus Mountains, but I would take Omarosa back, and they could keep Stacey Dash, just because I like having the most cutthroat person on our team.
She real.
She's
got that tactician's mind. She can she can help some scheming.
Yeah, no, she's a master at that. So it's an overwhelming no from the chat room. So I'm sorry, Stacey Dash, your tearful video. Like we don't want you back.
It better be only coming from black folks.
Well, that's why I qualified it. Like I love my non-black audience. We appreciate you, but we only needed black delegation on that one. That said, brother, hey, listen, I've been watching your work for some time with Rant Media. Could you tell us about that platform and what inspired you to start it?
Well, first off, thanks for having me on, because this show is pretty lit. I mean, if you played Up before this, you would have caught me, dancing on that screen when it was, because I was caught off guard. I was jamming when the camera came up. So I appreciate the show, but Rant in general. So what we're trying to do is, as you know, for the past 4 years, we're really kind of focused on, just opposing authoritarianism was our baseline. But really in this next era, we're really trying to create community through common understanding. And the way we're doing that is through content that combats disinformation. We want to make sure we're trying to create an environment where there's a set of commonly agreed upon facts, because that's really one of the biggest challenges we face right now, is that people are living in, there's one side living in objective reality, and then we have the other side talking about Jewish space lasers and Trump being inaugurated every other week. So really our focus is disinformation, and we're trying to see how we can bridge some of these gaps in the information space.
Well, how? Because that's a big one, right? You're striking you're striking to the core of the fundamental problem that we have right now. The fact that there's two alternate universes coexisting in the same place. Those people who don't believe masks, they believe masks are an infringement on their freedoms, and they don't believe science. How are you and your company actually making inroads into that? Because that's a difficult task that you're taking on.
Yeah. So, what we're trying to do really now is really shift to a more approach where we can pull people in who have felt as if they've been, just disillusioned, right? So what we do now is we do a lot of extremism focused content. So we'll go to the core of why people become radicalized, what rabbit holes they go down, and we try to create content. We have a partnership with this company called the Center for Analysis of the Radical Right. They're actually based in the UK, and we publish extremism-based content around that, in which we go to the core of it and say, hey, look, this is the point where people get radicalized. This is where they start going down these conspiracy theory rabbit holes. And what we want to do in the future is start to interview former, like QAnon folks, former people who went down this path, because that's what's important. You have to show people have been self-radicalized. So we have to get them to self-de-radicalize and reverse engineer how they fell into this, and that's kind of what, it's a big shift from what we were doing, just kind of going hard at Trump the last few years. But now we really want to see how we can be really productive and take on this challenge. We're still working on it, obviously.
Yeah.
So I see that you talking about this. Yes, we're having to shift, especially in these spaces, from talking about Trump and being, going hard on speaking about him all the time, every day, whether it was a dumb tweet or a name that he made up. But I see that you said that you documented Trump, most of his presidency, his entire presidency, and you stayed sane. Tell us about that.
Well, I stayed sane. I didn't keep my hair, but as we know, bald black bearded squad is the place to be, as Benjamin knows.
It's the place to be.
You're in good company.
Yeah,
You're absolutely right. So yes, sir.
It worked out. But documented the presidency. So essentially, after the Muslim ban came, it was just a flurry of activity. Me and my co-founder Zach and Adam, and we were kind of, there was such a flurry of activity, and we were already doing this new news company. I was like 24 at the time, and then I was like, you know what? there's so much activity. Let me just start documenting everything that happened. So it turned from 1 week column into a 4-year column, which is now like a database that you can click into every week and see literally everything that happened every day, an analysis of what happened. And it was a journey. It was wild. And I don't know how I stayed sane, but I'm just happy I'm happy I didn't have to do 4 more years of it. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Now you have Rant Media, so definitely.
Yeah. So tell us in terms of like your strategy going forward with Rant Media. And one of the reasons I wanted to bring you on is because a lot of times in these independent media spaces, we're in silos and we are all aiming for some of the similar goals. But without us cross-pollinating each other's audiences, we're on our own. And there's just not, there's the resources. I know you've run into this, and I'd like for you to talk about it. The lack of resources and funding, particularly for Black independent media. What are your strategies around some of those things, as well as some of your goals for your company?
Yeah, man, as you know, it's hard. It's hard out here to get funding for Black businesses, let alone Black media companies. Minority-owned media companies. Most of my co-founders also, half Arab. So, it's tough. But basically, we've done a lot of subscription-based. So we used to have ads, and then we said, hey, we don't want to be polluted by that. We want to create content for you and be able to, not have to race to do clickbait. As you'll see, we publish, we take our time on our articles, make sure we got, a solid, meaningful approach. And essentially what we focused on is subscriptions. And that's really been what has driven us. And that's really the key. And as you can see, like even Twitter, everybody knows, everybody's trying to like Substack. Everyone's now trying to inch towards that subscription model because it's the way to build sustainable revenue that doesn't really get impacted by, the market and advertising dollars going up and down.
So we know the struggle when it comes to you talking about us being in this space, by us minorities, Black media being in this space. We get the short end of the stick. So when you say subscriptions, how has that been going for you in this moment? And I only ask because there was a time where it would have probably been going good, but in this day and age, it's kind of like no matter how hard we do it, it's kind of like we're at the end of it. A lot of white media are doing the same things that we're doing, and they get it. In 2 seconds, they'll get so much money or so much push. But for some reason, it almost feels like we just, I don't know, something is missing for us. Do you feel the same?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes, you feel like you're hitting these roadblocks. And then especially when you look at sometimes pre-idea companies, it seems, getting like $1 billion valuations. And I mean, you got Clubhouse built by the Black community. I've actually been doing a lot of reporting on that aspect and like talking to some of the like Portia Bell, some of the people on Clubhouse that are doing activism for the Black community there. But it's like you see these platforms that are run by non-Black people that a lot of times built by Black people getting funding. But when it comes to media specifically, yeah, I mean it is difficult. When it comes to subscriptions, it's been going well. I mean we bring them into a community. It feels we have a newsletter. Et cetera. And we've been doing it. We did things for free for so long that I think over time, our audience and people really, they believed in what we did and said eventually, hey, will subscribe. And I know it's tough and it's hard to get into, but it took a long time for it to get legs. You just had to keep at it nonstop. But that's the way to do it. But it's looking like, with what you all have here, I mean, what you're doing on YouTube, I mean, this is great. I'm sure you're going to have some sponsors rolling in here. Cause I mean, I haven't seen a real morning show vibe like this on really any platform, especially from the Black community.
Stop it. Yeah. I know we good. We are. Thank you.
Yeah.
Rebecca, I'm gonna roast you real good. Let me stay focused. All the way live, Rebecca. One of the other reasons I wanted to bring you on is because you also operate in these, heavily in the political spaces, but as an individual person with a voice, right? Above and beyond what you do with your media company. I want to ask you, like, how has your experience been in terms of your politics, your Blackness? You're unapologetically Black, you're unapologetically progressive. And sometimes those things come to backfire on you if you're not careful, because the more outspoken a Black person is, particularly Black men, the more reticent the media community is, or just the broader political community is, in terms of embracing you as an individual. Have you faced some of those same impediments?
Yeah, I mean, especially, earlier, right? Like before it became, more trendy to be this way. As we know, like once last summer hit, everyone's posting Black squares and suddenly everyone's a activist. But like it was harder in the earlier days, right? Like especially 2014, like we started Rant in 2014. It has been a long time coming. Like, so I was 21, like my whole 20s spent on this. And we were talking about these issues back then and just wouldn't get traction, right? And then I remember specifically in 2016, I remember Adam Serwer posted about this too. And I'm sure you all were doing the same thing. But during that time when we were saying, look, although, of course, all Trump supporters aren't racist, but you have to ignore a lot of racism in order to support him, we were saying, hey, it's not economic anxiety, media. It's not. This is not economic anxiety. This is white supremacy kind of at the core of this. We've seen these rallies. We're Black in these spaces. And then people were laughing it off in 2016. And then you see over time, it took, when you're trying to speak that voice, a lot of the times, one of the things that made it good is that just the people on Twitter, and especially just our audience, and as you've seen, when the people are with you, it kind of makes the media kind of pay more attention. I think they've improved a lot since 2016, just because in general, when you're being unapologetically Black and calling something what it is, saying it's white supremacy, or saying this lie is a lie, or saying Black Lives Matter before it was cool to do so. It's like you said, sometimes people they'll try to marginalize you or say, hey, it's, you're getting ahead of your skis here. As you thought, both of you have faced something like this, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, no,
yeah.
you run into it's the phenomenon of where they want your voice, but they don't really want what you have to say. They want that Black voice to say what they want to hear. They don't want that Black voice to say what that Black voice wants to actually say. We've been facing that, like, not since I was 21. Like, how old are you, brother? You ain't even 30 yet, is you?
I'm 20. I'm 28. Yeah.
Man, you out here in these streets hitting it hard at 28. So like honestly, but from the very first entry point into this political space, Rebecca, I know you can speak to it. We face that same phenomenon. They want our faces, but they don't want our voices. It's
exactly our testimony. Every time we get on here, because we pride ourselves in bringing on, guests of color, particularly Black guests. We want to make sure this is a safe space for Black people. And when we bring them on, they understand the same thing. It's like we've all experienced that, and I want the white folks' money. Don't get me wrong. Like I want that money, but when we accept it and they put us in these spaces, they really just want our look. They want to put us on because it is something that will fall into the box of diversity and inclusion. And then they want to shut you up if you are discussing too much of a certain or particular Black subject that they may not personally align with what they believe in. But it's like, has no business to do with you. And it would be a disservice to me as a Black person in media not to speak on this. But don't tell them that, because they don't like that. They do not like it. And that's when you decide to walk out of that and walk away from money.
Yeah.
And do it yourself, which is what we have here, and which is what you have with Rant. So
exactly.
Unapologetic spaces are very important because we don't have to water down what the true story is.
Right.
This is our story. This is our narrative. This is what it is. And I think, it's important. I always say this with all y'all that come on this show, every one of you guys have an important role in this space. Because of you, the stories are told correctly. Because of you. Exactly. And especially because we're not, they think that we're just getting on and cutting on the TV. This is not hey guys, welcome back to my channel. No, this is not that. A lot of people have the experience to be in these spaces, whether a journalist or been doing the reporting, or a lot of people have that. And that's why I think that they try to make it harder for us, because we're not just coming in and just giving opinions. A lot of us have been covering this stuff for years.
This is our life. This is this for you? Is this more of is this your life versus a career? Because we run into the other thing is we run into a lot of people who occupy these spaces as a career versus people like us and you covering this because these stories really represent what's happening in our lives. Could you speak to that?
Well, exactly. I mean, I think really it's my life, and that's the thing. It's an obsession. I mean, it's really you have to be, when you're doing anything, any kind of entrepreneurial initiative, you have to believe in what you're doing and be in love with it. But like really, what moved me into this, I mean, my co-founder Zach, I've actually been friends with him since we were 7, and we used to talk about this all the time as kids. But like once I got older, and then like Trayvon Martin. Once Trayvon Martin got killed, he was like 2 years younger than me. He kind of looked like me at the time. I had a full head of hair at the time too. That did happen. He looked like me a little bit. And then I was struck, right? And then I got roped in. That was when I was always paying attention to news, but then I got really roped in. And then I worked in tech, and I worked at a tech company, and people were debating the trial, and it was, a lot of the people having these opinions in the media. I saw the way the media criminalized him, and I remember Eric Garner when that was happening, and all of that. That's kind of what started to move me to want to get into media, because I realized the power of it and how important it is shaping these narratives, shaping our stories, shaping our truth. Whenever a black man is killed, his mugshot is on the TV, but if the white person is doing the shooting, they show some photo of him and his family. And I saw that, and I was like, this is wrong. That was one of the reasons why I wanted to get into this, and to try to be, because the media is a lens through which people perceive reality, as we all know, and it's been held by people who were just focused on ratings and false equivalency games, and just not focus on integrity. And it was obviously because of advertising dollars and corporate forces, but it's not impossible to do this and still have your integrity, and that's at least what we're trying to prove by doing what we do.
Well, thank you so much for that, Ahmed. Let us know where people can find you and where your website is, so that people can come and stalk you and follow you on Twitter. Okay.
So you can find me on Rant Media, Rant with 2 T's, media, and at Ahmed Baba _ you can see on the screen there. I'll be on there. You can talk to me on Twitter. And we'll communicate. I appreciate y'all having me on here, because the show is a vibe for sure. And, just speaking the Black truth is so important. And, as we rise throughout these spaces, let's keep in touch and just do what we do.
That's a fact.
Oh, definitely. We'll definitely keep in touch. Make sure you have you back on the show.